Directed by Adam Wingard, Your Next is a cautionary tale of what happens if you don't slap your kids enough, or a cautionary tale of what happens if you slap them too much. I can't quite tell. Adam Wingard being the director behind the 2017 live-action Death Note adaptation, otherwise known as the universally agreed upon best movie of all time. Right? As well as the 2016 Blair Witch movie, otherwise known as Let's Stare in the Corner of the Room, but again. As well as working on these already well-established franchises, he helped create one too by directing some of the tapes from the VHS movies, as well as actually appearing in a tape in VHS 2, Phase 1 Clinical Trials, where him and a random woman attempt to exorcise a ghost by busting a nut in front of it. Works every time. Your Next also has Simon Barrett in it, who's also been involved in the VHS franchise, as well as other actors and directors from that series, including T. West, most notably known for his highly accurate portrayal of women in X and Pearl. Similarly to the 2016's Blair Witch, Your Next was also distributed by Lionsgate, which leads to the really fun game of will this video be instantly copyright claimed and possibly blocked worldwide. Your Next begins with a couple testing the durability of their mattress springs because you'd never want to make an ill-informed purchase. We then see the woman Tala looking incredibly unsatisfied with the integrity of them as she's questioning or not whether to return it. After putting her panties on to save herself from that dreadful breeze, the outdoor sensor light comes on, and we see from a handheld shot, giving the illusion of it being a POV of someone standing nearby watching. We know this to be a factual statement and true, because someone is indeed watching. Eric exits the shower due to all of the hard work required for checking the mattress for structural failures, and sees Your Next written on the window as he's now the unconsensual participant in an elaborate game of tag, before he then proceeds to repeatedly try and touch the bloodied messaging on the window, not quite grasping the concept of glass. He looks down to see that Tala is really bad at playing tag, as she'd much rather lay on the floor bleeding from her skull like a lazy person, before turning around and being hacked to death by a sheep who's enacting some kind of sick revenge against meat eaters and mattress spring connoisseurs. We then see a couple named Paul and Aubrey driving past Eric's house on the way to their vacation home, as they talk about how Eric left his wife for a college student and a really bad tag player. They then arrive at their vacation home, and upon finding out that the front door has been left unlocked, Paul responds in a totally normal and human way by saying that's funny. No, it isn't. That's concerning. But there's absolutely nothing to worry about, as the house looks untouched and is as dusty as a nun's dust collection. You sick pervert. We're then introduced to one of their sons, Crispin, and his girlfriend, Erin, as he's taking her to meet them for the very first time for their parents' anniversary. Here, Mum and Dad, I brought you a woman. Hope you enjoy your anniversary present. While it's just the two parents of the house, Aubrey hears a loud noise coming from upstairs, to then be jump scared by Paul as he sprints around the corner shouting, "Hey, I lit the furnace, sorry," in perhaps the most unnatural way you could possibly say that sentence.
"Hey, I lit the furnace, sorry."
Aubrey, being a sensible person, upon hearing a loud noise clearly indicating that someone else is in the property when they very much shouldn't be, immediately says that they need to leave the house, but Paul tells her that there's absolutely nothing to worry about and that he's going upstairs to check. Women and their overreactions. After not believing that there's anyone up there, but for some reason still checking it incredibly slowly as if there is someone, he's then jump scared by his own son Crispin, who's apparently unlocked the ability of teleportation and somehow manages to appear right behind him because he thinks it would be incredibly hilarious if his father just fell over and died. After unfortunately not about to be given a large sum of inheritance money, we see Aubrey later that night taking her medication in the kitchen as she's being watched by one of the most horrific, terrifying creatures that the world has ever seen. A furry. The next day, after sufficient yiffing has been performed on the grounds, we see Crispin's lovely and supportive brother Drake and his wife Kelly arrive. And by lovely and supporting brother, I mean incredibly immature, spiteful, and downright rude, as for whatever reason, he simply can't stop himself for pushing boundaries and making people feel uncomfortable. Evident by the fact that he attempts to play fight Crispin upon seeing him, to which Crispin is totally and clearly unresponsive to, leading to perhaps one of the best moments in the entire film, when Crispin says, "You almost hit my face," literally right after being hit in the face. Later that night, the rest of the siblings arrive, because clearly these parents needed to get a hobby back in the day, and were introduced to the sister Amy and to the brother Felix, as well as their partners, Tariq and Z. Another sign that Drake suffers from the unfortunate case of having a micropenis is how we see him spitefully staring at his wife after being denied sex, before he then tells Tariq, a filmmaker, that he should create commercials for a living as they're the peak of cinema. Man's clearly never watched the Vomit Gore trilogy. Like any good old-fashioned family gathering, of course it eventually culminates in a full-on argument between quite literally everyone, but suddenly a glass window shatters. And once everyone's done talking about non-important issues like ethics, Tariq notices something outside, followed by the shattering sound of a window breaking and a crossbow bolt being lodged directly into his skull, which the entire family takes a good 30 seconds to realise because they're far too busy having a nice respectable family gathering. Once the panic ensues, as that's going to be a difficult stain to get out of the carpet, Paul injures his foot due to the idea of the floor being a foreign concept to him, and Drake is shot in the back with another bolt after trying to save his mother. The most penetration he's been involved with in months. They then discover that their phone signal is blocked, and Crispin's girlfriend Erin immediately takes control of the situation by commanding each person to escape the room one by one, as everyone else just kinda stands around doing a little cry. Once they're out of the line of sight, and not able to pull out Drake's crossbow bolt, or else risk staining another carpet, they immediately pull out a bottle of incredibly strong prescription pills with ease, as it's every American's God-given right to become helplessly addicted to opioids. The sheer and utter panic amongst the home's occupants seems genuinely convincing, as nobody seems to quite understand what's going on, as they're apparently being attacked by medieval peasants with crossbows. The chaos amongst them all seems believable, due to my vast experience with home invasion killings. And it's not until Erin takes charge that people start formulating a plan and doing something that makes sense. Like Amy channeling the inner anime kid at lunch and making a random and rather concerning sprint straight towards the car outside, but ends up completing the next TikTok life hack trend of doing the how to lose all of your water weight in minutes challenge by running into a piece of wire placed directly at neck height, right outside of the front door, turning her inside juices into outside juices. And after the incredibly exhausting effort of watching your daughter slowly and violently bleed to death, Aubrey decides to go for a little lie down because it's past her bedtime. But once she's alone in the room, we see a hand emerge from beneath the bed, as whoever it is down there is very interested in the specific texture of this rug. But after being disgusted by the fact that the only thing clearly vintage about this rug is the woman residing on it, he hacks her up with a machete just as she turns to notice him. After hearing the screams, the rest of the family comes running to see that they're speedrunning their inheritance, and to be left wondering how a person could possibly scream despite having a machete protruding from their face. Erin, securing all of the windows and doors, is suddenly grabbed by someone in a fox mask, but much like the average British fox hunter, she stabs it in the arm simply for the fun of it. After Erin's done assaulting poor defenseless animals for her own pleasure, we see Kelly reading "You're Next" written in blood on the wall. Because they loved the title of the film so much, they had to use it twice. And after checking under the bed for any nasty monsters, she indeed finds a nasty monster, and is next seen sprinting out of the house and towards Eric's property. But as he's far too busy binge-watching all of Big Will's uncensored videos on Patreon to respond, she's punched through a glass door before being thrown through a glass table, as apparently this guy is an avid enjoyer of WWE and simply can't help himself because he loves to have fun. But once he's done living his childhood fantasies of doing some awesome wrestling moves in real life, and beating a woman, he swings an axe directly into the side of her head, making a really concerning grunting noise as he does. Sir, please stop. We then see Drake pull the bolt out of his back because this man is just full of great ideas, before passing out and falling to the floor as all of the blood leaves his incredibly large and smart brain. After running out to the car, but just kinda looking at it, because I guess he just likes cars or something, Crispin runs back to the house to once again run away from the house, but this time on foot to get some help. Once the love of her life has gone to retrieve some help with their current farm animal uprising, Erin is about to start dishing out weapons, when suddenly Kelly's lifeless body is thrown through a window, quickly followed by the masked Wolfman's life-filled body, as there's plenty more grunting to be done. He swings his axe at Erin, but she dodges it, tenderizes his meat with her foot, before quite literally tenderizing his skull with an actual meat tenderizer, as she cures his early onset male pattern baldness by removing the scalp entirely. With one of the intruders now taken out of the picture, Paul goes looking for his wife's killer as he believes them to still be in the house, before discovering evidence of someone staying here as he finds the forbidden apple juice. And after quenching his thirst, he comes across Felix and his girlfriend Z right before someone cuts his throat open in front of his son. And as he's panicking, gasping out for air, he reaches out to Felix in a frantic moment of desperation for his son to be like, "Ew, gross." After coming to the realization that Felix isn't just that materialistic that he wouldn't help his dying father because he would get his shirt bloody, he's that materialistic that he'd pay to have his entire family killed so he can have all of the inheritance. one of the Charlotte's Web cosplayers comes across one of the men sleeping on the job and responds by flipping over the dinner table in a rage, because screw this piece of furniture in particular. The angry lamb man then finds Erin hiding behind the door to the basement, when suddenly Drake regains consciousness and serves as the perfect accidental distraction, giving Erin the opportunity to tighten the screws in his back with a screwdriver, causing him to run away and retreat after being stabbed by a girl. Felix and Z then conveniently come down the stairs after all of the commotion has subsided, and they tell them that Dad is upstairs having a little lie down, which technically is true. Realizing that they're gonna need to use everything at their disposal to give themselves the upper hand, Erin begins fashioning makeshift nail traps to place beneath the windows, and tells Z that she's learnt all of these skills because she grew up inside of a survivalist compound, which is actually kind of ironic, considering the fact that she would later go on to feature in the Australian version of Survivor, where hopefully she caves someone's brains in with a meat tenderizer and incapacitates them with a nail trap, because that would make for some really great TV. Damn Australians and their booby traps. While down in the basement gathering more supplies, Felix breaks Drake's heart by being the one to tell him that Kelly was WWE'd to death before breaking his internal organs by stabbing them, and then stabbing them again, and again, and again. This man is simply too pompous to die and wouldn't dare grant his brother the satisfaction, forcing him to stab him with about 7 different tools. And by forcing to stab him with about 7 different tools, I mean, I guess he just wanted to. Erin heads upstairs to find Paul taking a beauty nap before being forced to jump out of the window with absolutely no hesitation as the masked man enters the bedroom to invite her to his weird Discord server where everyone has anime profile pictures and post incredibly concerning things. She runs off into the woods to pull out a large shard of glass from her leg before running back to the house after narrowly avoiding a crossbow bolt, almost as if it was a bad idea to go larping around in the woods with a weapon from 400 BCE. The pursuing masked man then receives an impromptu foot piercing after stepping on one of her nail traps, and this is when, and now hiding Erin, hears Felix admit to being a part of the plan as she hears that he's paying the men to kill his entire family as he simply cannot stand to attend another family gathering. Also, the inheritance is pretty good. We then see that Z is a completely normal person with a definitely correctly functioning brain as she tries to bang Felix on the same bed as his dead mother before Erin's phone rings to give away her position, meaning that she now has signal. She immediately punches the approaching man in the throat, as these killers are clearly just the slightly more psychotic cousins of the Wet Bandits, before she plunges a knife into the skull of the injured footman as he sticks his head through a window to investigate a noise. And speaking of plunging knives into human skulls, Erin then channels her inner Kevin McAllister as she booby traps the front door with an axe without a single booby in sight. The final masked man then chases Erin into the basement, where she proceeds to break all of the lights and set her camera up to continually flash, which luckily for her just so happens to be the perfect tool to use, as apparently the masked man is a photosensitive epileptic and is disoriented enough for Erin to drop a log. And by drop a log, I mean Erin drops a log on his head, repeatedly. And with all of the paid attackers now dead, Felix is forced to shoot Erin himself with a crossbow, but misses due to suffering from the unfortunate condition known as being a beta male. Z follows after her with the crossbow, quickly followed by Z no longer having the crossbow as Erin says, "No mine," and proceeds to choke her out. She kicks the door into Felix's face and then gets stabbed in the shoulder, which doesn't seem to particularly faze Erin all that much, before she rams a blender into the top of Felix's skull and brings a new meaning to the term soup for brains as she turns it on. And not being one to let others miss out on the fun, decides to penetrate Z's skull too by pulling the knife out of her shoulder and driving it into her off switch, located directly on the top of her head. And after having killed literally f***ing everyone, she answers Felix's phone as it rings. It's Crispin, and he's asking if everything is over yet. He was a part of the plan all along, but was too scared to stick around for it, and ran away leaving his girlfriend behind. He then enters the house to find Erin standing there holding the phone, and he tells her that she was never supposed to be a target. Her staying safe was an integral part of the plan, and that she needed to be alive to be a witness to confirm that everyone else was brutally killed by unknown lunatics. He starts talking about how he's about to inherit millions of dollars for the both of them, before she stabs him in the neck because boys smell kinda funny. She then stabs him in the eye, before immediately being shot by a police officer responding to a text she attempted to send earlier in the movie, before it then comes to an end, with the officer walking through the booby-trapped front door, which unfortunately for him, doesn't actually contain any boobies. So before things come to an end, I'd like to just give a massive shout out to all of my YouTube members and patrons. The people who every month, despite YouTube making it incredibly obvious that they're not exactly fond of the type of content I make, continue to support the channel and make sure that it sticks around. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or a patron yourself, not only are you just generally supporting the channel, but you also get access to a few bonuses, like getting access to all uncensored versions of videos going forwards, as well as being a part of the private Discord server. So starting off with this week's new YouTube signups, a big thank you to Ethan de Rosario, B. Ditty, Sezi Gandalf, JW, Woody42DH, Henrik Burnt, Alexusi, Lil Boon, Blind Bear, UTI L1TY, GK Barnes, Mothmouth, Arunus, Banzayukas, Paul Risk, Maz Music, Tom Nesbitt, I'm Chris, Florian Janin, Chef Sheep, Seol87, Scary Jim, Emo69, Henry Hicks Burdock, Evan Sliger, Wally Jr. 95, Jared, Ace Sparrowhawk, Starful Demon, Black Alicious, Nine Sight, Talon Flowers, Daniel Rossi, Keris Henderson, M, Terry Claire Benjamin, Finn Owner, Lisa, Alexandre Kyoshi, Vinicius Moraes, Oversoul Gaming, Mohammed Fawzi, Christian Berry, John Hates the Stupid, and Switz. And moving over to this week's new Patreon signups, a massive thank you to Oscar Brito, Charlie Barnes, RYSMIK, Jonas961, Idsworth, Nick, Cody Benchek, Larry Remster, Danielle Rosenbar, Cecil Langley, Richie Roberts, Kyan Hilst, Love Was Here, Jacob Van Den Brock, Roheath, Adrian Monk, Daryl Kempf, Mr. Custody, Roland Hansworth, For Honor, Crimson Clown, Daniel Schmidt, Destiny Nicholas, Hydrangea, Ravo Young, Scott Sternsier, Oliver Easton, Dan Smith, John's Discord blog, Jasmine Wu, Dominic Kruniak, Shuri, Faith Readers, Ian the Flame, Kenny Tai, Stefan, Tanner, Xaze, Christian McIntosh, Adriana, Auburn Harkenrider, Cafe Nero, Jordan Coenga, Kevin Batista, Douglas PP Big, Ryan Pedeston, Luke McCoran, Verices, Korn, Benjamin Shunk, Phoebe, Farting John, Max B, Jimmy G, and Forced Duck. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.